Madeline Brooks, 32, graphic designer, Austin, Texas. The invitation lies on the table. Silence. Rain taps the window. Scent of wet pavement. My parents left me 19 years ago, 60 feet from home, a convenience store parking lot. It started with spilled marshmallows. Camping trip ruined, they said. Walk back and think about it. I slept behind a dumpster that night, alone. Now the invite glows like a taunt, paper heavy with assumptions. Linda and Frank. Their neat script inside, Tyler's event. I haven't spoken to them since. Memories rustle like dry leaves. Hospital corners, stoic faces. Frank's uniform never left the house. Linda's survival stories drilled lessons. No tears allowed, emotions locked tight. Tyler excelled, stoic, athletic. Me, creative, curious. I did not fit. Their note says, come. My heart pounds. Is forgiveness possible? My head says no. Everything says run. The rain stops. Quiet. I pick up the envelope. Austin sleeps. Streetlights flicker. I open my bag. Ticket to Nashville books itself. Goodbye, old city. Hello, old wounds. The plane lifts. Clouds part. Questions fill the aisle. 8 inches between seats. Miles between hearts. Linda. Frank. Tyler. Do they think of that night? Tyler's face. Last image. His back. He watched them drive away. Flight lands. Nashville heat. I drive. Peach orchards roll by. The rehearsal dinner. Riverstone Lodge. Twinkle lights. I linger outside. Safer in the dark. I see Tyler. Same jaw. Same stance. He spots me. We meet on the porch. Moths dance in light. I find words. Remember the dumpster? He exhales. I do. He blames himself. Stone cracks. Invites me in. Frank stands. Uniform still pressed. Linda clutches pearls. Frozen. I speak. Simple. Clear. Explain the night you left me. Silence stretches. Frank's jaw tightens. Linda whispers. Different time, she says. Tough love, he adds. I stay still. Heart pounds. I show them the bruise. On my soul. Linda's tears. First time witnessed. She reaches. I don't flinch. Tyler holds both of us. We sit. No scripts. Frank lowers guard. I see fear. Linda crumbles. Stories of her own wounds. Cycle exposed. Fingerprints on pain. We trace them. Minute passes. Then an hour. Plans of recompense form. Cards not yet reopened. Family cut no longer bleeds. Scars stay. Air clears. Rain scent again. I breathe. Night softens. Moths leave. I stay. The orange glow of the convenience store sign bleeds across the windshield. Frank clicks the lock on the SUV. One sound. 2 chances gone. 8-year-old Madeline Brooks stands between pumps, sneakers dripping rain. Smell of gasoline. Lightning in the distance. Linda stares straight ahead. Pearl earrings frosted by dashboard light. Frank leans out the window. Voice low. Rules matter more than tears. Last offer. Walk back on your own or ride with us quiet. Silence booms. Engine growls. Rubber kisses asphalt. The taillights fade. Will they truly circle back? Or is this the final cut? She could wrench her own bike chain by 7. Never howled at scraped knees. Applause after every game. Tyler Brooks wore the family crown like a 2-star general's beret. Me? I painted galaxies on notebook covers. When a sparrow smacked the glass, I dug its grave with a dessert spoon. 1 thump, 1 eulogy. Dad watched from the porch like I was filing a noise complaint with God. Emotions were viruses. Tears, quarantined. It started small. Age 8, fluorescent maze of a department store. Legs, jelly. Blood sugar crashing. I leaked. Dad knelt, sleeve of his army surplus jacket stiff as concrete. You're loud, Mads. Choose. March now or find your own ride home. Mom nodded, mouth a tidy stitch in coral lipstick. They turned, carts squeaking over tile. My lungs caught fire. I sprinted, shoe soles slapping sales signs, hunting their shadows. That day they waited at the sliding doors. Lesson learned anyway. Feelings had expiration curfews. Age 9, darkness got teeth. Every click in the hallway tasted metallic on my tongue. I begged for a nightlight. Frank's answer, bravery is a switch. Flip it. Linda locked the flashlight in the hurricane kit. No rescues, she said. Ty got LEDs for his new bike frame. While he wheelied down the cul-de-sac, I burrowed under quilts until air looked like static. Hit a stub of candle, read by neon popsicle glow, found it gone next morning. Same note. Block letters on army green paper. Tough love. Contrast hung like mold on drywall. Tyler's report cards magnetized the fridge. My art fetched shrugs. He hosted entire block parties in the driveway. I rehearsed apologies in the bathroom mirror for existing too loudly. Their motto echoed inside every silence. Survival of the unwounded. Years stacked like cinder blocks in my chest. Until the invitation arrived. Riverstone Lodge, Nashville dusk. Twinkle lights wobbling on humid air. I paused on the porch, moths zigzagging reckless trajectories. Tyler stepped out, same granite jaw, new weight across his shoulders. You came, he breathed. Dumpster night, I said. Memory cracked between us. Inside, Frank stood to center, uniform starched against gravity. Linda clutched pearls like prayer beads. I lifted the envelope, corners softened by handling. Explain the night you left me in the rain, I said, question worn smooth like river glass. Silence curled thick. Rain-tapping tin roofs counted heartbeats. Frank's jaw twitched. Linda's whisper slid raw. Different era, she offered. Tough love, he echoed, but his armor caught light like a fracture. I rolled up the sleeve of memory, showed the bruise still purple under skin no one could see. First drop slid down her cheek. Linda crying. Tyler stepped between us, arms wide enough to hold a collapsing decade. Chairs scraped kitchen tile. Stories spilled. Linda's own childhood lockouts. Frank's frozen birthday nights in barracks. Fingerprints on pain traced in a circle back to me. The air shifted. Rain scent returned. Moths slipped into night. No scripts, just breath. Raw, honest heartbeats. Frank lowered his voice, soft as flannel finally warmed. I was afraid to see me in your wet eyes. Linda laid her hand on mine. Warm, trembling. Plan grew quietly. Therapy sessions, weekly dinners, apologies to 8-year-old me in photos crinkled by attic heat. Scars stay. They map where light breaks in. I sit. Words settle. For the first time, no one flinches. I breathe. The only person who noticed me was Aunt Karen. She'd glide in with canvas bags clinking, tubes of oil paint, dog-eared fantasy novels. Your weird is your superpower, kid, she'd whisper, sliding Twix bars under my pillow. Then she'd vanish for months, leaving me to drown in the echo of her perfume. By 13, I'd mastered the art of invisible tears. Bathroom fan whirring, I'd press my face to cold tile and let the water run loud enough to swallow the sound. My journal lived beneath a loose plank in the closet. Warped wood, splinter edges, heartbeats in ink. I wrote letters to my future self that began, "If you're reading this, you survived." One July dawn, Dad barked, "Crater Lake, 4 hours. Don't waste my fuel." Heat waves already shimmered off the driveway. Tyler stretched across the back like a prince claiming territory. I wedged between coolers and expectations, knees knocking the seat back with every pothole. Dad's mirror eyes pinned me. "This trip costs more than your art ever will." Mom snapped the radio louder, static like judgment. I counted mile markers the way other kids count sheep. Halfway there, Tyler's Walkman died. Silence thickened. Karen's last Twix melted in my pocket, wrapper sticking to my thigh like guilt. I slipped my fingers under the floorboard, craving paper refuge. The plank creaked. Instead of my secret journal, I found a stack of unmailed envelopes. My name inked in Mom's shaky cursive. Dad's block letters. I'll resign my commission. Just tell me what broke you. Pages tear-blotted, edges curled like autumn leaves. Behind the bathroom mirror, one-way glass, I met Karen's eyes. Phone steady, recording every sob. She wasn't the soft aunt. She was their panicked lifeline. The car rolled on. Crater Lake waited, blue as betrayal. I clutched the letters. The real journey had already begun inside my chest. Smoke curls between us. Cedar pops. Dad leans forward, elbows on knees, voice low steel. Appreciate the plan. Keep your mouth shut. Tyler, Brooks, both. Copy? Yes, sir. 2 echoes. Mine cracks at the end. Highway blurs. Strip malls melt into pine walls. Sun thickens. Smells like baking sap. I press cheek to cool glass. A plywood shack glints. Trays of strawberries bleeding red juice. Can we? Clock's ticking. Dad cuts the wheel. Schedule tattooed on his brain. Campground noon. Heat bounces off dust and aluminum. Dad snaps. 10 and 7. Go. Pegs clatter like dropped coins. I hammer dirt. Dry, stubborn, laughing at me. Mom yanks the mallet. 2 swings. Done. Beginner hands, she murmurs. Not mean. Worse. Curious pity. Dusk. Fire leaps. Stars hide behind smoke. I swallow once, twice. Sparks float like fireflies. Crater Lake, I say. Bluest water on Earth. Volcano imploded itself 2,000 years deeper than... Tyler snorts. Everyone knows, genius. Dad smirks. My script dies on my tongue. I poke embers. Mom smacks my wrist. Dinner. Silence tastes like char. Next dawn. Head spins, stomach hot and boiling. Bile crawls up my throat, sticky and sour. Dad strides past, boots crushing dew. Crater rim, 6 miles, on me. Trail climbs fast. Altitude punches lungs. Heat presses like glass. Minute 30. Legs jello, world tilts. I stop. Dad spins, jaw square. We just started, soldier. I hug ribs. Sick. My knees knock. Sweat beads like glass pearls. Mom exhales a long hiss that cuts me smaller. The rim yawns beyond. Blue so deep it swallows sky. I sway. Dad's eyes flick. Disappointment. Calculation. Tyler steps past. Silent. Perfect posture. Shame burns hotter than sun. I dig nails into palms. Stay vertical or fold. When I stepped out of the bathroom, the air was thick with tension. My parents and siblings stood by the car, their faces set like stone. My father had just finished pumping gas, and my mother clutched a map, her grip tight. "Madeline," my father said, his voice eerily calm. "You're 13 now. Old enough to take responsibility for your actions and their consequences." I stood frozen, confusion swirling in my mind. "What?" I managed, my voice barely a whisper. "Yesterday, you chose to ruin our family vacation," he continued, his words slicing through the air. "Today, you can choose to find your own way home." My mother folded the map, her cold eyes locking onto mine. "It's time you learned that your behavior affects others. Maybe this will finally teach you to woman up." I looked from one parent to the other, waiting for this to reveal itself as some twisted joke. Tyler, my sibling, sat in the back seat, pointedly avoiding my gaze. "We're an hour from home," my father said, though I knew it was a lie. We had only been driving for 2 hours from Crater Lake, and the trip was 4 hours total. "You've got your allowance. There's a phone in the store. Figure it out." With that, he slid into the driver's seat. My mother walked around to the passenger side, pausing only to say, "This is for your own good, Madeline. Sometimes lessons have to be hard to stick." I stood in shocked disbelief as they started the car. "You can't leave me here," I cried, running toward them. My father rolled down his window part way. "Watch us," he said, and then they drove away, leaving me alone in a cloud of dust and exhaust. I watched until their car disappeared around a bend in the highway, certain they would turn back. They didn't. The first hour after they left, I sat on the curb outside the convenience store, convincing myself they would return. This was just another lesson, an extreme version of walking away from me in a department store. They wanted to scare me, to prove some point about independence and consequences. But as the minutes ticked by, doubt crept in. What if this was real? What if I was truly alone? The scent of gasoline mixed with the sharpness of fear, and I felt the weight of my parents' expectations pressing down on me. Would I confront my past or succumb to the expectations that bound me? The world around me faded into a blur, and I was left with one haunting question. If expectations are heirlooms, who taught me to unwrap them by breaking first? The payphone clicks dead. Wind rattles the plate glass, slicing through the fluorescent hum as a rusty pickup swerves into the lot. Same model as Dad's, wrong plate. Doug drops his magazine, eyes wide. The driver steps out, silhouette haloed by headlights, holding what looks like Madeline's faded bandana. My stomach drops. Is this what they meant by tough love? Or has the past finally come collecting? After the second hour, reality began to sink in. They might not be coming back anytime soon. I stepped into the convenience store, the scent of stale coffee and cheap snacks filling the air. I approached the bored-looking attendant, a young man with acne and a name tag that read Doug. "Excuse me," I said, my voice trembling. "My parents left me here. Can I use your phone?" Doug glanced up from his magazine, suspicion etched on his face. "Phones for paying customers only." I fished out my money, $7.25, my entire allowance for the week. "Can I buy something small and then use it?" He shrugged, indifferent. "Whatever." I bought a bottle of water for $1.50, leaving me with $5.75. Doug pointed to a payphone mounted on the wall near the bathroom. I dialed my home number first, letting it ring until our answering machine picked up. "It's Madeline. I'm still at the convenience store. Please come get me." My voice cracked as I hung up, trying again, hoping they were just screening calls. No answer. Next, I called Aunt Karen, but got her machine too. "Aunt Karen, it's Madeline. Mom and Dad left me at a convenience store on the way back from Crater Lake. I don't know exactly where I am. Please call me back at—" I realized I didn't know the payphone number. I hung up, examined the phone, and called back to leave the number. I tried a few other relatives, but no one picked up. It was Sunday, and everyone was likely out enjoying their day, unaware that mine had spiraled into a nightmare. I returned to Doug. "Do you know where I am exactly? Like the name of this town?" "Pine Creek," he answered without looking up. "About 60 miles south of Nashville." 60 miles. My father had lied about how far we were from home. "Is there a bus station nearby?" I asked, though I already knew $5 wouldn't get me very far. Doug snorted. "Bus comes through on Tuesdays and Fridays. Today's Sunday." I stepped back outside, the sun beginning its descent toward the horizon. The world felt heavy, the weight of my parents' expectations pressing down on me. Would I confront my past or succumb to the expectations that bound me? The air was thick with uncertainty, and I was left with one haunting question. If expectations are heirlooms, who taught me to unwrap them by breaking first? A few cars stopped for gas, but the occupants barely glanced at me. I considered asking someone for help, but remembered all the warnings my parents had drilled into me about strangers. The irony was not lost on me that the people who had warned me about the dangers of the world had just thrown me to those very dangers. As darkness fell, the temperature dropped rapidly. I was wearing only shorts, a t-shirt, and sneakers. I had no jacket, no blanket, nothing to protect me from the cold night air. The convenience store closed at 9 Doug gave me a look of mild concern as he locked up. "You got somewhere to go, kid?" he asked. "My ride is coming," I lied, not wanting to appear as desperate and abandoned as I felt. He seemed relieved by my answer. "All right then. Good luck." And then he was gone too, driving away in a beat-up Honda. The lights inside the store went out, leaving only the harsh fluorescent glow of the area around the gas pumps. I knew those would likely be turned off soon as well. Panic began to set in as I realized I would be spending the night outside alone in the dark. I walked around the building looking for somewhere safe to wait out the night. Behind the convenience store was a dumpster, and behind that a small alcove formed by the wall of the building and a stack of empty pallets. It smelled bad but was out of sight from the road and offered some protection from the wind that was picking up. I wedged myself into the space, hugging my knees to my chest, and tried to make myself as small as possible. The ground was hard and littered with cigarette butts and other trash. Something skewered in the darkness nearby, a mouse or rat investigating the new inhabitant of its territory. Hunger gnawed at my stomach. I had not eaten since a granola bar at breakfast, but I knew I needed to save my remaining money. I sipped sparingly from my water bottle, aware that when it was gone, I had no way to get more until the store reopened in the morning. As the night deepened, strange noises emerged from the surrounding woods. An owl hooted, branches creaked. Distant cars occasionally passed on the highway. Each sound sent a new wave of fear through me. I had never been afraid of the dark like this before, not even during my phase with the nightlight. This was different, more primal. This was the fear of being utterly alone and unprotected in a world that suddenly seemed vast and threatening. I thought about my family driving home without me. Were they worried? Did they regret leaving me? Or were they satisfied with their lesson, believing I was finally learning to woman up? I imagined Tyler in his room, perhaps feeling guilty but too loyal to our parents to speak up. I pictured my mother setting the dinner table with one less place, sitting, my father sitting in his recliner, watching the evening news as if nothing had happened. Around midnight, the temperature dropped further. I could see my breath in the air. My body shook with cold and fear. Insects buzzed around me, drawn to the only warm body in the vicinity. Something crawled across my foot, and I had to stuff my fist in my mouth to keep from screaming. I cycled through emotions as the night wore on. First came disbelief, a stunned numbness that this could really be happening. Then fear took over a relentless parade of worst-case scenarios. What if no one came for me? What if something attacked me in the night? What if I froze to death behind this convenience store dumpster and no one ever knew what happened to me? Fear gave way to anger around 2:00 in the morning, a burning rage that made my teeth clench and my fists ball up. How dare they do this to me? What kind of parents abandon their child for being sick on a hike? The injustice of it all made me want to scream, but I stayed silent, afraid of attracting attention from whatever or whoever might be lurking in the darkness. Anger eventually surrendered to a cool, clear resolve. As the first pale sliver of light broke through the trees, my heart slammed against my ribs like a caged bird. The cold seeped into my bones, sharp and relentless. But something else was burning hotter now. Resolve. I was done being the forgotten daughter, done waiting for parents who treated me like a broken toy. I pushed off the chilly concrete, legs shaking, planning every step. Sneak into town, borrow a phone, find a ride, anywhere but here. Then came the rustle. Not a squirrel, not wind. A deliberate crunch. A shadow detached from the pines. Hands fisted, I braced for danger. Instead, my sibling Tyler stepped into the gray hush, hoodie rumpled, eyes rimmed red. The same person who'd stayed silent when Frank barked orders now stood without a word, offering me his battered flannel. The scent of pine clung to it, and beneath that, home. For the first time in 18 hours, my throat closed with something other than rage. Tyler swallowed, voice low. I couldn't let you disappear. Disappear? I echoed silently. Is that what they'd expected? Inside the shabby convenience store, the owner, gruff, overalls streaked with oil, guided me to a back sink. The water ran rust-pink at first, washing away dirt and bits of leaf. Every scrape stung, but each sting reminded me I was alive. Over syrupy coffee and powdered donuts that tasted like cardboard salvation, I stared at the neon hum of the beer cooler and decided, no more shrinking. Tyler hovered, breaking months of silence. He spoke of Frank's crumbling after Mom Linda's last deployment, of how our house felt like a barracks without warmth. My hurt collided with his guilt, and something cracked open between us, stronger than rules, softer than stone. For the first time, a lifeline made of cheap knit and shared pain wrapped around my knuckles. Had this always been here, waiting in the hush before dawn? The bell above the door jangled, sharp, like a warning shot. A stocky man in a flannel shirt emerged from the stockroom, grease on his knuckles and suspicion in his squint. Bill, he owned the convenience store. Not Doug, the night shift ghost who'd erased me at 2 a.m. Bill ushered me past rows of neon energy drinks and beef jerky. The fluorescent lights buzzed, angry bees overhead. A faint scent of burnt coffee clung to the linoleum like regret. He pushed open a door labeled Staff Only. Inside, the room was cramped. Folding table, dented microwave, one humming mini-fridge beside a calendar from 2019. "Martha," he barked, "need you." A woman popped up from behind shelves of motor oil, hair pinned in a silver bun, eyes soft as melted marshmallow until they landed on me. Her gasp sliced the stale air. "Sweet mercy, what happened to you?" She cupped my chin. Her fingers smelled of lavender lotion and broken promises. I spilled it. Frank, Linda, the sick joke disguised as tough love, expecting rolled eyes or a lecture on respect. Instead, Martha's cheeks flushed scarlet. "Monsters," she hissed. "Call Sheriff Roy. Now." "No." My plea cracked like thin ice. "Please, just let me phone my aunt." Bill nodded, eased the beige rotary phone from its cradle. I pressed the cold receiver to my ear, heart jackhammering. Aunt Karen's sleepy hello cut through static. "Aunt Karen, it's Madeline. The dam broke. They ditched me. Pine Creek store, said I ruined everything." Silence. Then a roar low enough to rumble through the line. "They what?" Make it 3 hours, 4 tops," Bill told her, covering the mouthpiece. "Tell her you're safe. I promise." He handed it back. Karen surrendered to steady resolve. "Stay put, baby. I'm coming." Seconds after I hung up, the clatter of rain lashed the windows hard enough to blur the parking lot. Tyler appeared by the counter, soaked flannel in hand. He met my gaze. No word, just a silent vow. In that instant, I understood. Lightning may have struck our household, but twin storms can still share the same shelter. When I stepped out, Aunt Karen had whipped up a breakfast sandwich and fresh orange juice. She waved off my attempt to pay. "You keep that, honey. You might need it." True to her word, she arrived in under an hour, tires screeching as she pulled into the parking lot. Before I could even rise from the plastic chair, she was there, wrapping me in a fierce hug. "Oh my God, Madeline, are you okay? Did anyone hurt you? I can't believe this is happening." She held me at arm's length, her eyes wild with concern as she scanned for injuries. "I'm okay," I assured her, though we both knew it was a lie. Aunt Karen turned to Bill and Martha. "Thank you for looking after her. I don't know how to repay you." "No need," Bill grumbled. "Just make sure whoever did this faces consequences." The drive back to Austin was quiet at first. I stared out the window, watching the same scenery I had seen yesterday from my family's car, now transformed into something unrecognizable by what had happened. "I called your house," Aunt Karen finally said, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. "No answer. We'll try again when we get to my place." Her apartment was a small 2-bedroom in a complex on the east side of Austin. It was cluttered but cozy, filled with books, plants, and colorful throw pillows, the exact opposite of my parents' austere, organized home. "You can stay in the spare room as long as you need to," she said, showing me to a room that doubled as her office. "Let's try your parents again." This time my mother answered on the 4th ring. "Hello?" Aunt Karen put the call on speakerphone. "Linda, it's Karen. I have Madeline with me." A pause. "Oh, she called you." The casual tone, the complete lack of concern made my stomach clench. "Yes, Linda. She called me after spending the night behind a dumpster because her parents abandoned her at a convenience store. What the hell were you thinking?" The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel the weight of unspoken words hanging in the air, a storm brewing just beneath the surface. Aunt Karen's fierce protectiveness clashed with my mother's indifference, and I was caught in the middle, a fragile bridge between two worlds. As the rain began to patter against the window, I felt the tension rise. Would my mother ever understand? Would she ever care? The scent of rain mingled with the lingering aroma of Aunt Karen's breakfast, a bittersweet reminder of the warmth I craved but rarely found. In that moment, I realized I had to confront my past. I had to find closure, not just for myself, but for the family I had once known. The journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, but I was ready to face them. After all, I had Aunt Karen by my side, and together we would navigate the storm. Madeline Brooks had always been the one to push boundaries, but this time she had crossed a line. At just 13, she found herself abandoned, left 60 miles from home with no shelter, no food, and no way to return. The weight of her parents' decisions pressed down on her like a heavy fog. "Do you even realize what could have happened to her?" Aunt Karen's voice trembled with anger. "We were teaching her self-reliance," her mother, Linda, replied, her tone icy. "Frank and I discussed it thoroughly. She would figure it out." "Figure what out?" Aunt Karen shot back, her voice rising. "How to survive being abandoned by the people who are supposed to protect her. How to sleep outside in 40-degree weather. How to avoid being kidnapped or worse." Madeline sat in silence, her heart racing. This wasn't just a mistake made in anger. It was a calculated decision. They had planned to abandon her. A chill ran through her as she realized the truth. "I want to talk to her," she said suddenly, her voice steady despite the storm brewing inside her. Aunt Karen hesitated but handed her the phone. "Mom," Madeline began, her voice firm, "are you and Dad coming to get me?" "Madeline Brooks," her mother replied, her tone shifting to a sickly sweet gentleness that sent shivers down Madeline's spine. "This is a lesson you needed to learn. When you're ready to apologize for ruining our trip and show that you understand the importance of thinking about others, we can discuss you coming home." In that moment, Madeline knew she would never return. "I slept behind a dumpster last night," she whispered, the words heavy with pain. "I was cold, scared, and alone. Is that what you and Dad wanted?" "Sometimes the most important lessons are the hardest ones," Linda replied coldly. "When you're ready to come home and follow our rules, you know our number." Madeline handed the phone back to Aunt Karen, who erupted into a fierce argument with her sister. Words like neglect, abuse, and authorities echoed in the air, each one a dagger that pierced through the silence. The tension was thick, a storm brewing just beneath the surface. Madeline felt the weight of betrayal settle in her chest. The dim light flickered, casting shadows that danced like her swirling thoughts. "I want to talk to her," she declared, her voice trembling yet resolute. But as she turned to face the door, a chilling realization gripped her. What if her aunt held the key to a truth too painful to bear? The question lingered, echoing in the stillness, urging her to confront the darkness of her past. Would she find the closure she desperately sought, or would the truth shatter her world even further? By the end, it was clear that I would be staying with Aunt Karen indefinitely, and she would be seeking emergency temporary custody. The following days were a blur of activity. Aunt Karen took me to a doctor who documented my physical condition, including the insect bites, scratches, and mild hypothermia I had suffered. We met with a social worker who took detailed statements about what had happened and about my life at home leading up to the incident. Aunt Karen hired a lawyer, dipping into her savings to pay the retainer. 3 days after my rescue, we went to my parents' house to collect my belongings. Aunt Karen insisted that a police officer accompany us, which turned out to be a wise precaution. My parents were coldly civil, watching with stony faces as I packed clothes, books, and a few treasured possessions into garbage bags. My sibling Tyler hovered in the hallway looking conflicted. When our parents stepped away to speak with the officer, he slipped into my room. "Cass," he whispered. "I did not know they were really going to leave you there. I thought they were just trying to scare you." I looked at him, this sibling who had always been their favorite, who had sat silent in the car as they drove away from me. "But you did not say anything. You just let them do it." He stared at his feet. "I know. I am sorry." It was the first and only apology I would get from anyone in my family. As we prepared to leave, my father stepped in front of me. "This rebellion will not accomplish anything. Madeline Brooks, when you are ready to be part of this family again, you know what we expect." "I expect parents who do not abandon their children," I replied, surprising myself with my boldness. "I guess we are both disappointed." I walked out of that house and did not look back. Living with Aunt Karen was like stepping into a different universe. In her small apartment, feelings were not weaknesses to be suppressed, but experiences to be acknowledged. When I woke up screaming from nightmares about being alone in the dark, she did not tell me to toughen up. She sat with me, offered me tea, and listened as I tried to articulate the terror that now lived inside me. The legal battle for custody was both quicker and more difficult than we expected. My parents initially fought Aunt Karen's petition, claiming I was a troubled child who had manipulated the situation. But the evidence was overwhelming. The convenience store owner and his wife provided statements. The doctor's report detailed the physical effects of my night outside. My own testimony about years of emotional neglect eventually convinced the judge. When my parents realized they were losing, their strategy shifted. Suddenly, they claimed they wanted me back, that they had made a terrible mistake, that they had learned their lesson, but their actions betrayed their words. During supervised visitations, my father lectured me about loyalty and respect. My mother cried about how I was tearing the family apart. Neither ever simply said they were sorry for what they had done. The judge granted Aunt Karen temporary custody for 6 months with mandatory family therapy if my parents wanted to work toward reunification. They attended exactly 2 sessions before declaring the therapist biased and refusing to return. Changing schools mid-year was another challenge. I went from the familiar hallways of Westlake Middle School to Riverside Middle, where I knew no one and had to explain my situation to curious new classmates. "I live with my aunt" now became my standard response, deflecting further questions. Some teachers were understanding, offering extra help as I adjusted to different textbooks and teaching styles. Others viewed me with suspicion, perhaps influenced by the whispered rumors that inevitably spread. That girl was abandoned by her parents. There must be something wrong with her. The air was thick with the scent of fresh pine, and the soft rustle of leaves whispered secrets around me. I sat in Dr. Collins' office, surrounded by the calming presence of plants. The warm glow of the soft lighting wrapped around me, yet my heart felt cold and heavy. "What your parents did was about them, not you," she said, her voice a gentle anchor in my storm of emotions. I closed my eyes, and suddenly, I was back in that grocery store, the moment I spotted my mother. Her indifference sliced through me like a knife. The echo of her footsteps faded, leaving me grappling with the haunting question: why wasn't I enough? Aunt Karen enrolled me in therapy with Dr. Melissa Collins, a child psychologist specializing in trauma. Twice a week, I sat in her office, trying to make sense of what had happened and who I was now. "What your parents did was about them, not you," Dr. Collins told me repeatedly. I understood this intellectually, but emotionally, it was a different story. A part of me still believed that if I had just been tougher, less sensitive, more like Tyler, my parents would have loved me enough to keep me safe. Austin was small enough that I occasionally spotted my parents or sibling around town. The first time it happened, 6 months after I left home, I froze in the cereal aisle as my mother walked past. She saw me, paused, then continued shopping as if I were a stranger. That casual dismissal hurt more than a confrontation ever could. Tyler and I developed an awkward, limited relationship. He would call, always when our parents were out to check on me. He came to see me once at Aunt Karen's apartment, bringing my favorite candy and sitting stiffly on the edge of the couch. "They never talk about you," he admitted during that visit. "It's like you never existed." I nodded, unsurprised. "Are they still the same with you?" I asked. "Yeah," he said, "but different too. Stricter, I think. Like they're afraid I'll turn out like you if they ease up." By the time I entered high school, the temporary custody arrangement had become permanent. My parents stopped fighting it, perhaps realizing it was easier for everyone this way. They could maintain their image of perfect parenting without having to deal with their imperfect child. I could heal without the constant pressure to be someone I was not. Aunt Karen became my rock, my safe harbor. She came to every school play, celebrated every achievement, and held me through every setback. In the quiet moments, I learned to confront my past. I began to understand that my worth wasn't tied to their expectations. I was more than their disappointment. I was Madeline Brooks, resilient and creative, ready to embrace my journey toward closure. The rain taps the window like echoes of locked doors. Late shift, empty corridor. I smell Lysol and trauma and my own sweat. Headlights on the wet windshield remind me of blue strobes that sliced my living room years ago. Aunt Karen raised me after that night. Not one word from Frank or Linda Brooks, the people whose rules still ring in my skull. Tyler tried. A stiff 5-minute call every leap year, voice smaller each time, as if the phone weighed a dumbbell. I always asked, "They still double your push-ups for blinking?" He laughed once, then exhaled like the joke also bruised. Art showed me a loophole. While Frank barked push, 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 I drew push past. Pencil lines let me sprint outside the pull-up bar. In college, professors called the sketches raw power. I called them safety exits. My dorm smelled spray glue, cheap ramen, and cedar shavings shipped from Austin to remind me of Aunt Karen's porch. Every time she texted heart emojis, the world felt 3 inches wider. Professors, internships, gallery shows followed, Instagram clout I never asked for. But each new follower slid off like rain down a windshield. Truth, something stuck to my ribs harder than fame. Aunt Karen never said, "Don't go home," simply stalked me with enough bravery. Still, every third night my phone buzzed with a mailer addressed in her loopy script. All caps. Lock it. Do not open. Return label read attic. College commencement. Cap. Gown. Cheers. Blue Texas sky leaked pastel gold. After the handshake photos, Aunt Karen hugged me so tight I tasted sunscreen and lemon bars. "You earned new chapters," she whispered. "Write loud." My heart replied, "What do you hide in the attic?" Her eyes darted left, then right, like a soldier scanning corners. She forced a smile that cracked. I pretended not to see. 6:30 a.m. Flight back. Thunder across Travis County. Uber through my old affluent suburban community. Green shutters still gleam like polished envy. The Brooks house looks blank. Curtains drawn like eyelids sewn shut. I park down the street. Grass still trimmed to military buzz. A cardinal flits from mailbox to oak, then leaves with a rustle that feels like a warning. I sneak around back. The attic ladder drops with a sigh. Dust spins in a shaft of sunrise, little galaxies I once wished on. I smell cedar and mothballs. Time frozen in a trunk. Inside, a stack of envelopes, mustard yellow bands holding together more years than I've lived. Top envelope postmarked exactly 15 years ago today. Ink shaky, but I know the handwriting. Love, Mom and Dad. Heartbeats double time. I flip it. Return address dissolves, ink bleeding into ghost numbers, then morphs into the same hospital where I clock night shifts. Breath ragged now. The next card shows the same hospital stamp, same cell block font, but the patient ID fades into a Jane Doe tag. My own scribble from training. Another. All of them. Memory knocks, sirens, metal twist, drip, asphalt steam. 15 years ago, my foot slipped, pedal locked, headlights across lanes. I walked away. 2 bodies wheeled in coated yellow. I checked them under aliases, haunted for hours, then for years. The town never knew. Aunt Karen watched from a distance, kept the attic shrine while I chased scholarships. Cards kept coming even after the accident because she paid postage, arranging the lie like a nurse cleans a wound. I slam the trunk lid. Dust explodes like fireworks. I hear my own voice on admission night, rasping into a recorder. Unknown adult male, unknown adult female. I see Frank's jawline on one gurney, Linda's braid on another. Tyler, teenage, pacing the ER hallway like a hostage video on loop. My legs give. Knees hit rough wood. Pain proves I'm awake. I clutch the cards. Tears burn, equal parts salt and gasoline. Aunt Karen steps onto the top rung, rain scent curling off her coat. She doesn't speak. Her eyes say everything. I whisper, I check them in. She kneels beside me. You kept them alive long enough for me to heal, she answers. World tilts. Rain softens outside. I realize closure was never hiding, only waiting for my hands to stop shaking. Surrounded by a whirlwind of creativity, I stepped into a vibrant studio, my sanctuary. The scent of fresh paint mixed with laughter, a melody that drowned out the echoes of my past. Here, with every brushstroke, I confronted the ghosts of abandonment that clung to my heart. I remembered the silence of my sibling, the unspoken words hanging between us like threads on the verge of snapping, connecting, yet dividing. Time blurred as I dove deeper into art school, a world pulsing with possibility. I found my tribe, fellow artists who saw sensitivity as a strength, not a flaw. Graphic design became my passion, and soon it was the foundation of my career. But each fleeting trip back to Nashville felt less like returning home and more like wandering through a museum of my grief. Tyler, once my closest ally, graduated from Oregon State and landed a job in Austin. Our distant relationship maintained the bare minimum. Holiday cards, occasional calls, a thin thread of connection that felt like a lifeline. Following him to Austin was an almost instinctual move, propelled by the vibrant design scene and what remained of our ties. We cautiously navigated developing a friendship, meeting for coffee, carefully skirting around our childhood. In my late 20s, I crafted a name for myself as a graphic designer. My work won awards. My client list flourished. I bought a stylish little condo overlooking Puget Sound. On paper, my life sparkled like a success story. But in the quiet moments, the unexpected noises sent me spiraling. I still slept with the light on, burdened by trust issues that had derailed far too many relationships. That haunting night behind the dumpster was a weight I struggled to carry, but I had built a chosen family, friends who proved their loyalty. Aunt Karen, always calling me without fail each Sunday. A compassionate therapist who unveiled my sensitivity as a superpower, not a defect. And a career that sparked joy in using that sensitivity to create art that resonated with others. Yet, there was one hard line I drew. No contact with my parents. They tried reaching out occasionally, a few messages around holidays or my birthday, but I never responded, each time an echo of past pain. Loved ones can sometimes mean heartache, and I was done with that chapter of my life. The invitation trembles in my hand like the last leaf clinging to a branch in late autumn. My pulse syncs with the ticking of the antique clock Mom swore she'd never sell. But the envelope carries her scent, a ghostly memory of pine sol and cinnamon. The RSVP card is half filled in her handwriting. +1. My breath catches. Who the hell am I supposed to bring to the wedding of a family that walked out on me 20 years ago? The wall between us was one I built myself, and I had no interest in creating a door until that fateful day, 19 years after they abandoned me, when the celebration invitation arrived. It came on a Tuesday in May, a plain brown envelope with my sibling's neat handwriting on the label. I wasn't expecting anything from Tyler. Our last communication had been a brief text at Christmas. Curiosity piqued, I opened it. Inside was a cream-colored envelope adorned with elaborate calligraphy. Miss Madeline Brooks. Sliding my finger under the flap, I pulled out a thick cardstock invitation announcing the wedding of Tyler Mitchell to Jessica Chen, set to take place in Nashville in 6 weeks. My first reaction? Happiness for my sibling. In our rare conversations, he'd mentioned Jessica, a kindergarten teacher he met through volunteer work. She sounded kind and grounded, exactly what Tyler needed. But as I set the invitation on my coffee table, something else slipped from the envelope. A smaller, plain white envelope with Madeline Brooks written in familiar, precise script. My hands began to shake. 19 years since I'd seen those neat letters. 19 years without any direct communication from my parents. Why now? What could they possibly have to say that I would want to hear? I left the note untouched for 3 days, going about my work and routines, while it pulsed with a malevolent energy from its innocuous white paper. On the 4th day, unable to bear the suspense any longer, I finally opened it. Madeline Brooks, it began without preamble. Tyler's wedding has made us reflect on family and the passage of time. We have made mistakes. We would like the opportunity to speak with you before the ceremony if you are willing. We understand if you are not. The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken emotions. Could I really face them after all this time? Would I find closure, or would it just reopen old wounds? The clock ticked on, and I was left standing at the crossroads of my past and future, wondering which path I would choose. Regardless, we hope you will be there for your sibling's special day. He misses you. Linda and Frank Mitchell. No dear, no love, no explicit apology for abandoning me at a convenience store and leaving me to sleep behind a dumpster. Just an acknowledgement of unspecified mistakes and a request to talk. The coldness of it, the careful distancing language sent me spiraling into a panic attack so severe I had to call my friend Jessie to come over. Jessie found me hyperventilating on my bathroom floor. The note crumpled in my fist. She sat with me talking me through breathing exercises until the room stopped spinning and my lungs remembered how to work properly. "Do you want to tell me what happened?" she asked when I was calmer. I handed her the crumpled note and watched her face change as she read it. "Those absolute bastards," she said finally. "This is not even an apology." "I know," I whispered. "But Tyler wants me at his wedding." Jessie helped me to the couch and made us both tea, giving me space to process. "What do you want to do?" she asked eventually. "I do not know," I admitted. "Part of me wants to throw this in the trash and pretend I never saw it. Another part wants closure Jessie finished for me." I nodded. "Is that pathetic after everything they did?" "No, it is human. But closure does not have to mean reconciliation, Cass. It could just mean saying your piece and walking away for good." That night, I called Dr. Lisa Warner, the therapist who had taken over my care when I moved to Austin. She fit me in for an emergency session the next morning. "This is a significant trigger," she acknowledged as I showed her the note. "How are you feeling about it?" "Angry, scared, confused, like I am 13 again and powerless." "But you are not 13 anymore," she reminded me. "You are 32, successful, independent. You have all the power in this situation. You can choose to engage or not engage. You can set the terms." Over the next week, I researched family estrangement and reconciliation. Flashback. The rain smells like nickels. I'm 10 again. Bleachers drip metal streaks across the playground. I crouch under them. My watercolor phoenix, tiny metal clenched like a secret, cuts the soft skin of my palm. Through aluminum slats, I see Frank pin a ribbon on Tyler, sharp salute. Linda's whisper stabs. Art is indulgent. Thunder blurs my vow. One day, I'll rise anyway. Present day. The invitation sits on my kitchen counter like a loaded question. No warmth, just cold lines. Frank, Linda, Tyler. My lungs shrink in déjà vu. I pace circles until Jessie appears with peppermint tea and zero judgment. "What do you want, Madeline?" she asks. I shrug, voice cracking. Aunt Karen, gray curls flying, calls from Arizona. If you decide to face them, I'm your ride-or-die escort. Therapist Dr. Warner frames it crystal clear. Power now belongs to me. 32. Thriving, not that dumpster kid. Still, my heart beats like a trapped sparrow. Pros. Support Tyler. Maybe silence old ghosts. Cons. Panic flash. Possible rug pull from the people who once left me to freeze behind fluorescent lights. I text Tyler. I'm coming. For you, not for them. He exhales, static, crackling relief through the line. Then the risky ask, could you meet them the day before? I set rules like armor. Neutral cafe on Main. 1 hour max. Aunt Karen at my elbow, peppermint latte steaming a shield. Frank and Linda will see I didn't dissolve. I multiplied. My fingers tremble as I press send. Rain drums the window like applause. I think of that crumpled phoenix. Maybe the bleachers were never cages. Maybe this time I rise on purpose. The kitchen smells of burnt toast and pine sol. 13-year-old Madeline Brooks presses her cheek to the cool linoleum, counting the cracks like rosary beads. Mom's suitcase wheels click. Dad's boots stomp away. Then silence. The air tastes metallic, like swallowed pennies. She squeezes the paper airplane Tyler folded for her, ink smearing wet against her palm. Fast forward to today. The invitation sits on my kitchen counter like a loaded question. No warmth, just cold lines. Frank, Linda, Tyler. My lungs shrink in deja vu. I pace circles until Jessie appears with peppermint tea and zero judgment. What do you want, Madeline? She asks. I shrug, voice cracking. Aunt Karen, gray curls flying, calls from Arizona. If you decide to face them, I'm your ride-or-die escort. Therapist Dr. Warner frames it crystal clear. Power now belongs to me. 32. Thriving, not that dumpster kid. Still, my heart beats like a trapped sparrow. Pros. Support Tyler. Maybe silence old ghosts. Cons. Panic flash. Possible rug pull from the people who once left me to freeze behind fluorescent lights. I text Tyler. I'm coming. For you, not for them. He exhales, static, crackling relief through the line. Then the risky ask, could you meet them the day before? I set rules like armor. Neutral cafe on Main. 1 hour max. Aunt Karen at my elbow, peppermint latte steaming a shield. Frank and Linda will see I didn't dissolve. I multiplied. My fingers tremble as I press send. Rain drums the window like applause. I think of that crumpled phoenix. Maybe the bleachers were never cages. Maybe this time I rise on purpose. I would hear what they had to say what I needed to say, and then decide about further contact. I booked flights for myself and Aunt Karen. I reserved hotel rooms, not willing to stay with Tyler and risk running into our parents unexpectedly. I wrote out what I wanted to say, practicing with Dr. Warner until I could deliver the words without breaking down. As the date approached, my anxiety increased. Nightmares haunted me. Abandonment, darkness, being 13 and alone. I threw myself into work during the day, trying to exhaust myself enough to sleep at night. I doubled my therapy sessions and practiced meditation techniques to manage the panic attacks that came with increasing frequency. A week before the wedding, I received a text from Tyler. They're looking forward to seeing you. Thank you for giving them this chance. I stared at the message for a long time before responding. I haven't decided anything beyond hearing what they have to say. The night before our flight to Nashville, I stood at my bedroom window, looking out at the Austin skyline. 19 years of building a life of healing, of becoming someone my 13-year-old self could be proud of. Was I really going to risk all that progress for people who had thrown me away like garbage? But then I thought of that scared girl behind the dumpster, and I knew she deserved to be heard. If nothing else, I would speak for her. The flight to Nashville was turbulent, matching my internal state. Aunt Karen held my hand during takeoff, her gnarled fingers still strong and reassuring. We checked into our hotel downtown, a sleek high-rise far removed from the affluent suburban community where I had grown up. "How are you holding up?" Aunt Karen asked as we unpacked. "Terrified," I admitted, but resolved. We had arranged to meet Tyler for coffee that afternoon before the rehearsal dinner that evening, which I had chosen not to attend. The morning tasted of rain on warm pavement. I stepped out of the hotel, Austin left behind, Nashville drizzle now beating on my sleeves. Tyler texted a new address, a riverside bistro with floor-to-ceiling windows, adding, "They're already here." I inhaled cedar from a passing lumber truck. The scent yanked me back beneath the weight bench, 19 years ago. Frank's drill sergeant boots, the metallic bite of rope against small wrists, a single purple skittle dissolving like hope. Aunt Karen squeezed my hand. "We can leave at any moment." Inside, light bounced off silverware like metals clinking. My eyes found two gray heads at the corner table. Linda's hair was shorter now, streaked ash. Frank's shoulders still carried that parade ground stiffness. I felt my heartbeat in my throat. Frank stood first. "Madeline Brooks." Voice gravel rough, softer than memory. He extended a hand, trembled, then set it down, unsure. Linda rose next, clutching a napkin. "Thank you for coming." I slid into the chair opposite them. Tyler took the end, ready referee. A long silence expanded, thick as the humidity curling my hair. Linda broke it. "We rehearsed words all week." Her gaze drifted to the rain-streaked windows. Everything felt hollow. Frank cleared his throat. "We were wrong." Simple, abrupt. A lifetime of apologies packed into 3 syllables. I waited. Rain drummed the awning. Plink, plink, like childhood tears on tin. He continued, eyes fixed on his coffee. "We thought toughness would save you. We believed fear was love. We never meant—" His voice cracked. "Never meant to lose you." Linda reached across the white linen. Her fingers stopped inches from mine. "The day the police called, when you were gone, I sat in that empty room smelling cedar and motor oil and realized we had built a cage, not a life." I swallowed salt. "I spent nights under bleachers convinced your rules were the world. Took years to learn love isn't boot camp." Frank nodded, cheeks wet despite squared jaw. "We're seeing someone now. Therapy. Not just for us, so when you ever need us, we show up whole." His medals, those imagined ones, felt suddenly small. Linda added, "We won't ask forgiveness. We just want you to hear. Every birthday, every first day of school you missed, we ached. We thought punishment was parenting. We were wrong. You deserved softness and we gave you steel." My pulse steadied. Steel turned into armor, thanks to other people. I built a life without you. It's beautiful, loud, full. Frank's chin lifted. "We respect that boundary. If you choose distance, we honor it." I studied the faces across from me, wrinkled, humbled, human, not the titans of childhood nightmares, just people who had failed spectacularly. I exhaled. The restaurant smelled of rosemary and wet leaves. "I came to speak for the girl hiding under benches." My voice sounded calm, foreign. "She's safe now. That's what I needed you to hear." Silence rippled, then softened. The storm outside eased, sun poking through clouds like a question. Tyler's hand brushed my shoulder. "Cass?" I pushed back my chair. "Thank you for this meal. I'll think about what comes next." I stood, legs steady. The room didn't tilt. Linda's eyes shimmered. "May we write to you? Letters, not demands." I considered the weight of paper versus absence. One letter. I decide if there's another. Frank nodded once, a soldier surrendering. "Understood." I stepped into bright, dripping Nashville air. Rain scent lingered, but underneath it, fresh asphalt, cut grass, possibility. I didn't know what tomorrow looked like. I did know the girl beneath the bench had spoken loud enough for everyone still inside to hear. The restaurant Tyler picked was upscale but not pretentious, with large windows framing the Willamette River. Aunt Karen and I arrived 15 minutes early, my insistence. I needed the psychological edge of watching them walk in, rather than being the one under their gaze. "Remember," Aunt Karen said as we settled in, "you are in control. We can leave at any time." I nodded, my throat tight, words trapped inside. My hands trembled slightly as I sipped water, eyes glued to the entrance. At exactly 11 Sioux, they walked in. 19 years had transformed them from towering authority figures into ordinary people in their 60s. My father's military posture had softened, shoulders slightly stooped, his once dark hair now silver. My mother looked smaller than I remembered, her face lined, hands spotted with age. They scanned the restaurant, identical expressions of apprehension etched on their faces. Tyler, who had arrived moments before them, pointed in our direction. I watched their expressions shift as they registered my presence. My mother's hand instinctively went to her throat, a gesture I remembered from childhood. My father's jaw tightened, then deliberately relaxed. They approached our table with measured steps. "Madeline Brooks," my mother said, her voice catching slightly. You look well." "Karen," my father acknowledged my aunt with a curt nod, which she did not return. An awkward silence fell as they took their seats. Tyler looked between us all, desperation in his eyes, as if he had made a terrible mistake. "Thank you for agreeing to meet us," my father finally said, his voice gruffer than I remembered. I had rehearsed this moment for weeks, but now that it was here, all my carefully prepared statements evaporated. "Why now?" I asked simply. "After 19 years, why reach out now?" My parents exchanged glances. "Tyler's wedding," my mother began. "It made us realize that time is passing." As they spoke, the atmosphere shifted. The once imposing figures of my childhood now appeared fragile, their age revealing the weight of their own struggles. The clinking of silverware and soft murmurs of other diners faded into the background as my heart raced. I realized that the authority I had feared was merely a facade, masking their own insecurities. The tension thickened, and for the first time, I saw them not as parents, but as flawed individuals grappling with their own pasts. This revelation ignited a flicker of empathy within me, challenging my long-held perceptions. The restaurant smelled of rosemary and wet leaves, a reminder of the storm outside. "I came to speak for the girl hiding under benches," I said, my voice calm, almost foreign. "She's safe now. That's what I needed you to hear." Silence rippled, then softened. The storm outside eased, sun poking through clouds like a question. Tyler's hand brushed my shoulder. "Cass?" I pushed back my chair. "Thank you for this meal. I'll think about what comes next." I stood, legs steady. The room didn't tilt. Linda's eyes shimmered. "May we write to you? Letters, not demands." I considered the weight of paper versus absence. "One letter. I decide if there's another." My father nodded once, a soldier surrendering. "Understood." I stepped into the bright, dripping Nashville air. The rain scent lingered, but underneath it, fresh asphalt, cut grass, possibility. I didn't know what tomorrow looked like, but I knew the girl beneath the bench had spoken loud enough for everyone still inside to hear. My father finished for her. That family is important. Family. I repeated the word bitter on my tongue. "You abandoned me at a gas station when I was 13 years old. You left me to sleep behind a dumpster. You never came back for me. You never even called to see if I was alive or dead. And now you want to talk about family." My mother flinched. "We thought you would call someone. Find a way home." I was 13. My voice rose despite my determination to stay calm. I had $7.25 in my pocket. It was 60 miles to Nashville. What exactly did you expect me to do? "We made a mistake," my father said, the admission seeming to physically pain him. "We took the lesson too far." A lesson? I echoed. Is that what you call child abandonment these days? Madeline Brooks. My mother reached across the table, but I pulled my hands back. We were trying to teach you independence, self-reliance. We never meant. You never meant for me to spend the night outdoors, to be terrified, hungry, cold, to think my own parents did not care if I lived or died. What exactly did you mean to happen? We thought you would call a friend for a ride, my father said, or flag down a police officer, show some initiative. The absurdity of his statement struck me like a physical blow. Initiative, I repeated. I was a child. Your child. It was your job to protect me, not to abandon me as some twisted test. We know that now, my mother said softly. We have had a lot of time to think about our choices. 19 years. I agreed. 19 years in which you made no attempt to apologize, to make amends, to even acknowledge what you did. We tried to reach out. My father protested. You cut us off. For my own protection, I was shouting now, not caring who heard. You were dangerous to me. You hurt me deliberately, calculatedly, and then you justified it. Why would I let you back into my life? Tyler put a hand on my arm. Cass, please. They are trying. I shook him off. No, Tyler. Trying would have been getting therapy to understand why they thought abandoning their child was acceptable. Trying would have been sending a real apology, not a vague note about mistakes slipped into a celebration invitation. Trying would have been respecting my boundaries for 19 years instead of using your wedding to force a confrontation. My father's face hardened into the familiar mask of disapproval I remembered from childhood. You always were too emotional, Madeline Brooks. This is exactly the weakness we were trying to correct. Frank, my mother warned, but it was too late. There it is, I said, a cold calm, replacing my anger. There is the real reason you abandoned me. Not to teach me a lesson, not to build character because you could not stand that I was sensitive, that I had feelings, that I was not a robot like you wanted. That is not fair, my mother protested. Fair Aunt Karen interjected, speaking for the first time. You want to talk about fair Linda? Was it fair to leave your daughter alone at a convenience store? Was it fair to drive away and not look back? Was it fair to tell her it was for her own good when really it was because you and Frank could not handle a child who did not conform to your rigid expectations? My mother's face crumpled. For the first time, I saw what might have been genuine remorse in her eyes. No, she whispered. It was not fair. We were wrong, my father said, the admission clearly costing him. We should never have left you there. No, you should not have, I agreed. But you did. And here we are, 19 years later, and I have built a life without you. A good life. I am successful, independent, strong. Everything you claim to want for me, I achieved despite you, not because of you. And we are proud of you, my mother said, reaching for my hand again. This time I let her touch me briefly before pulling away. You do not get to be proud of me, I said quietly. You did not earn that right. The diner's bell jingles, slicing through the heavy air. Karen walks in, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. She places a worn cassette on the table, the kind that holds memories and secrets. The tape crackles to life, revealing a young Madeline Brooks sobbing into a toy recorder. Why won't they come back? The haunting sound echoes, but then, layered over it, is the voice of adult Madeline, raw and unfiltered, because I finally came back for myself. The family flinches, realizing they're trapped in a playback from a therapy session Karen secretly recorded. Their shame loops endlessly, a haunting reminder of their past. Madeline's heart races as she confronts her family. You think you can just show up and act like everything's fine? She challenges, her voice steady. You abandoned me, and now you want to play the proud parents? Frank's face hardens, the familiar mask of disapproval returning. You always were too emotional, Madeline. This is exactly the weakness we were trying to correct. Madeline's anger cools, replaced by a chilling calm. No, Dad. The real reason you left me was that I wasn't the robot you wanted. I had feelings. Linda interjects, her voice trembling. That's not fair. Fair? Karen's voice cuts through the tension. Was it fair to leave your daughter alone at a convenience store? To drive away and never look back? Madeline watches as her mother's face crumples, genuine remorse flickering in her eyes. No, Linda whispers. It was not fair. Frank's admission hangs heavy in the air. We were wrong. We should never have left you there. Madeline nods, her heart pounding. But you did. And here we are, 19 years later. I built a life without you. A good life. Her mother reaches for her hand, but Madeline pulls away. You don't get to be proud of me. You didn't earn that right. The people who can be proud of her are those who supported her. Aunt Karen, her therapists, her friends, her chosen family. I came here for closure, she continues, her voice steady. To let you know I survived. I am whole and healed despite your actions. What can we do? Linda asks, her voice barely above a whisper. Madeline considers. Some broken things can't be fixed, but if you want to try, start by acknowledging what you did without excuses. Get therapy. Respect my boundaries. Frank nods stiffly. We can do that. I'll believe it when I see it, she replies. I'll be at Tyler's wedding tomorrow. I'll be civil, but don't mistake that for forgiveness. That takes time. As they part ways, Madeline feels a curious lightness. Not forgiveness, not yet, but a burden lifted. She faced them as an adult, on her terms. The wedding, the next day, is a blur of polite interactions. Jessica is lovely, warm, genuine. Madeline raises her glass for a brief toast, focusing on her sibling and his bride, acknowledging their childhood only in the vaguest terms. The past may linger, but she's finally stepping into her own light. My parents stayed on their side of the room, respecting the boundaries I had set. As Aunt Karen and I prepared to leave the reception, my mother approached alone. Madeline Brooks, she said hesitantly. Thank you for coming. It meant everything to Tyler. I nodded. I came for him, not for you. I know. She twisted her hands together, a nervous gesture I had never seen from her before. I wanted to say what happened that night at the convenience store. I've imagined it 1,000 times. What it must have been like for you. How scared you must have been. I'm so sorry. Truly sorry. It was the most direct apology she had ever offered. And something in me responded to the sincerity in her voice. Thank you for saying that, I said finally. Would it be all right if I called you sometimes? She asked. Just to talk. I considered the request. You can email me, I offered. Let us start there and see how it goes. Her face brightened slightly. I would like that very much. I did not hug her goodbye, but I did shake her hand, a small gesture of civility that seemed to mean a great deal to her. On the flight back to Austin, Aunt Karen asked, Are you okay? I think I am, I replied, surprised to find it was true. I said what I needed to say. I stood up for that 13-year-old girl behind the dumpster. Whatever happens next, I did that. I'm so proud of you, she said, squeezing my hand. You are the strongest person I know. Back in Austin, I returned to my life, my work, my routines. But something had shifted inside me. The past would always be part of me, but it no longer defined me. I was not just the girl who had been abandoned. I was the woman who had survived, thrived, and finally confronted her abandoners. 2 weeks after the wedding, an email arrived from my mother. It was awkward, formal, full of weather reports and impersonal news, but it was something. I waited 3 days before sending a brief, equally impersonal reply. Would these small exchanges lead to real reconciliation? I didn't know what to expect. But I felt different now. I was no longer that desperate child seeking approval. I stood before them, ready to demand genuine remorse and respect for my boundaries. Healing isn't a straight path. Scars linger, and the past can creep into the present when you least expect it. But we have a choice. We can let our wounds define us, or we can wear them like badges of resilience. That night behind the dumpster taught me a harsh truth. Those who should love you can hurt you deeply. Yet, the years that followed revealed something equally vital. You can create a life filled with chosen family, people who will never abandon you. So, let me ask you this. Have you ever had to confront someone who hurt you? Did you find closure, or did it bring more pain? I want to hear your story, and if this resonates with you, share it with someone who needs to know they can survive what once felt insurmountable. Remember, your worth isn't defined by those who failed to see it. You are stronger than what happened to you,